What's going on? It's Nick. I wanted to check in with you guys, let you know about the rental class that I took 2 Saturdays ago. It's 9 to 5. We went through some of the stuff that she looks for when she invests, and you got to see a couple pictures of properties and things of that nature. A lot of good stuff. But yesterday, the Saturday that just passed, she took us to two of her properties. One that was completely renovated, and the tenant just left, so it was actually commanding a rent, and we got to see what she does, the type of finishes that it requires to get the top end of the rent in the area, the type of neighborhood it is, and we also got to walk because they were so close. Walk to a property that she was renovating, so we got to see through her eyes. Well, not through her eyes. She told us about little things she looks for when we walk neighborhoods, like the amount of grass that's cut, the amount of any abandoned houses, anything like that, and you want to make sure that certain things like if there's a ton of cars there on a Friday, you might want to look into that because in Baltimore there's a lot of good neighborhoods, but there's a lot of blue collar neighborhoods. So you got to look into the nuances of that. So one block could be good, one block cannot be good. It's kind of like a block by block thing, or street by street. The next street over could be a bad street. So we got to see little things that she looks for when she goes out here and invests and check out neighborhoods and stuff of that nature. And we got to actually see a house that's stripped down to the studs that she's renovating. We got to see a couple of little bumps and bruises that you get when you have the budget at first, and sometimes that budget doesn't make it all the way through. We got to see like stripped down to the studs. They found they had knob and tube wiring, so they had to strip all of that out, and they found out there was a leak. They didn't know if the leak was coming because it's been raining a lot. They didn't know if the leak was from the rain or if it's like an actual problem that they had to fix. But they found out like it didn't dry up when it was raining, when the rain stopped. So they had to start digging out a French drain. So we got to see that. So that was kind of cool, to be able to see like when an investor looks for, when an investor renovates what they try and do, and the hiccups that come along the way. Because you hear about it, but to actually see it and to see how you just gotta roll with the punches. Because you know since she's such a seasoned investor, she has close to 100 rental properties. That she's going to be able to roll with the punches and still make money on this thing. So it gives you a little bit more confidence that just because something happens, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. So I'm going to give you 5 things that I took away from the class that I didn't know beforehand. Hopefully they help you out. One, during the lunch break, she came over and sat down with a couple of us. She gave us a little nugget that she didn't even teach the rest of the class, is that, if you go to H&R Block or something like that, you want to get your taxes done, that's great if you're a regular W-2 employee. And anyone who's watching this video knows you probably can make some extra money if you take a tax class for next year and do people's taxes. I know I could do that. You know you could do that. Do you feel like you would know how to handle somebody with a couple rental properties, houses? No, probably not, right? So that's something you really got to look at. And so you want to look into and make sure if you have someone in your area that could do it, get a wealth specialization, like someone who specializes in people with investments, particularly real estate investments. You want to get a real estate investor, CPA, someone who specializes with people who have real estate holdings, someone who knows how to take advantage of those tax advantages that you're partially investing for. You rent it for cash flow. You get the tax write-offs. That's part of the benefit. That's part of why we're here trying to learn about how to do the real estate thing. So you want to make sure that you're able to actually take advantage of these taxes. So that's something that you should look into. And once you build your holdings, definitely check that out. And number two thing I learned is that when you're screening your tenants, something that I didn't think of doing, you can actually go tell them, you're talking on the phone like, hey, I'm going to run a background check on you. I'm going to, check your credit, and I'm going to need to see the property that you currently live at to see how you keep house. And it's up to them. If they could say, hey, okay, I'll get back to you. Or they could say, okay, fine. So if they're okay with that, that gives you inside of how this person is going to take care of your house. If you go over tell somebody that if you want to live here, I'm going to have to see your house and their house is still a mess, that's how they're going to treat your house. Obviously, they don't care enough to clean up when you're coming over. You gotta be careful because they're probably going to clean up when you come over. But if someone doesn't, that should let you know you don't even want that person. How to get around, the quick cleanup when you're going to be investigated or something like that. You just tell them I'm going to come on a couple days during the week. Say I'm going to come this week. I'm not going to tell you when, or I'm going to come down during these couple days. I'm going to pop up on them on like a surprise, so you can see how they're living. If they don't keep house the way you would want someone to keep house, no one's going to be perfect. Especially if they have kids or something like that. But if you see certain things like, some people they just leave. I've seen people going into houses like they just leave trash, like just open trash on the floor, stuff like that. You want to avoid because this is your investment at the end of the day, and no one's going to take care of it like you, of course. But you want to make sure that the person isn't destroying your house, because if you have to put money into re-renovating stuff like that, that's going to cost you at the end of the day. Because in the rental business, at least in the single families, like that one person can really hinder your investment. It could lower the return on investment. And you want to sign these tenants up for 2 years because you want to limit that tenant turnover. And you don't want to just limit the tenant turnover, so you don't want to rush and put somebody in there. You want to limit the tenant turnover so you have less repairs when it's time to turn those tenants over. And that leads me into my next point, that do little things that can make your property stand out. Because when we went to see her property has granite. She said she puts granite countertops in all her houses. And if you put row houses, you probably won't spend more than probably like more than 700 on granite countertops. I know some people are like, I'm putting granite in a rental. But if you put laminate in there and they put a hot pot on that, that's going to destroy the laminate. No one's going to take care of it like you're going to take care of it. So you can get something that looks nicer. You can get a little bit of better rents because it looks prettier. Like, if I'm going to go to the house, even if they cost the same, because, it can get competitive. The markets can get real competitive. My house has the granite. Your house has the laminate. My house is $1,325 a month. Your house is $1,300 a month. Which house would you pick? The house that has like the little nicer things, and you have a lot of time to get this money back because you're in it for the long haul. And it's only something like that, little upgrades, only like $700. So at the most, you probably get it done for like $500, and it is quick and it lasts. You can put the cheaper laminate in, but they're burning it up, messing it up, putting hot pots and things like that could distort it. Is it really worth it? Are you really saving money? Because it's not a flip where you have it and then it's not yours anymore. This is yours for the long haul. So you got to think of things. Is it really saving you money? Like, are you really saving any money doing this? If you got to look at it the long haul, so that's something else to consider. And this also leads me to my next point that I took away, that you should actually consider if your market, every market is different, but in Baltimore, you can get people with Section 8 pretty readily. I know probably like in San Francisco or something like that. Like in Silicon Valley, you're probably going to do anything like that. But here you can get people on subsidized tenants, on Section 8, MBQ, whatever your local program is called, if it's not Section 8. You want to consider that because lots of times you're going to get a little bit higher than the market rent. It's not supposed to be like that, but it ends up being like that. You get a little bit more than the market rate. Like here, a 3-bedroom, Section 8, you're going to get like $1,400 to $1,500 a month. And that's pretty cool, $1,400 to $1,500 a month. And that property, on the top end, and that property is going to be subsidized. The rent is going to be subsidized. So you're going to get at least a portion of it guaranteed every month. So even if the tenant is late on their portion, you are still going to get paid. You're never going to go without any money. And that's kind of important, especially if you're starting out. Like your first couple rentals, it could be painful to pay that mortgage payment if you have a mortgage on that property. It could be really painful to pay that, and to know, yeah, you might not get the whole $1,400, but if you get $1,200 or $1,300, you can get by. But if your tenant doesn't pay and your mortgage is $500 and you didn't get any of the rent, that's going to hurt. So that's something you have to consider. And the Section 8, they've been cutting back on Section 8. So the tenants are a little bit more apt to be on their P's and Q's because they don't want to have to lose their voucher because Section 8, they're going to do their own inspection to make sure that they keep the property up to snuff. And when you're doing this, what I just said, if you notice, is that you might get $100 out of that 1,400. If you're renting to someone on Section 8 and you choose to do that, or any subsidized program, but on Section 8, some people are 100% subsidized. So if they approved you to get $1,400 a month for your property, you get the $1,400 a month completely. But some people aren't. Somebody you might have to pay a couple $100 a month, and they're making a minimum wage. Like if you have somebody coming over from like apartment where they're not paying for the water bill, they're not paying, PG&E and stuff like that, they might not be able to handle it if they're making, if they on minimum wage. So that's something you have to look at. And I say how this ties into the last point. To get the high end of the rent, like to get to the 1,500s, you're going to have to put in little things to make your property be a little bit better. Like here, if you put a ceiling fan in every room, you're going to get a little bit more. They're not going to tell you how much you get for each amenity you put in there, washer, dryer, things like that. But the nicer it is when they come in there, the nicer it is, the more likely you're going to get approved to get a higher rent on the Section 8. Because Section 8 comes out and tells you what you're going to get, what this property is worth rent-wise. So if you make a nicer property, spend a little bit more, you're going to get a little bit higher rents, which is great, especially in times where like it's kind of tough. You had that person on a multi-year lease, you're going to get a good portion of the rent guaranteed, and it's the highest you can get, because just last year it was like 2.5% rents went up a year. But with the new administration coming in, it went down to 0.5%. So think about that. If you're getting 0.5% of the high end rent, that's okay. You can still make things move. But if you didn't spend the money to get the higher end rent, now you're getting 0.5% increase every year of a lower rent. That's something you have to think of, because now you're losing money to inflation. You're losing a little bit of money rent-wise to inflation every year. So that's something you have to think about. And you started with the lower, so it's getting lower and lower and lower. So that's something you have to think about when you're doing the property. And number 5, you want to make friends with your lenders, with your potential lenders. She's a big-time person. She takes her lenders out to dinner and things of that nature. And when you get up there, that's probably something that you should do too, because those are the people who get the deals done for you. If you want to use other people's money. Some people, they want to own their rentals or everything they own outright. That gets kind of risky, because if I'm an investor and I have 100 properties, but my properties are leveraged, you're an investor and you have 70 properties, but yours aren't leveraged. Who do you think they'll probably go at? They'll probably go at you because they can get more out of you. So that's something you also have to consider. So when you're doing your numbers, you might actually want to look at how much mortgage your property can sustain and give you a cash flow that you're comfortable with. So you want to make friends with your lenders, because those are the people who can push deals through. They have limits on the amount of loans you might be able to get, but certain people could push things above, push things through, and it's all about relationships. That's the relationship part of the game. And if they can't help you, they might be able to put you on, because once you get enough loans from like a regular bank, you might have to go to portfolio lenders, and they could put you on the people who could help you down the line, and you keep that cycle. And when you go to them, have everything that you need to have for them. If you can find all that information, have it nice, neat, and nice packet, so there's no surprises. You let them know up front, this is what I got, this is my credit score, this is how many properties I got, this is how much I'm making. You go to them as a businessman or businesswoman should. Go to them with all your ducks in a row, and it'll make a big difference. If I come to them and I'm on my P's and my Q's, and my credit score is at the borderline, but they knew it up front. I came to them on my P's and my Q's. It might not help, but I'd rather put things in my favor versus if you went there, your credit score is iffy and you didn't tell them, so they're doing all this work thinking like you need to approve for the loan, and then they find out they find out your credit is trash. They go look it up and it's just like they're scared, and then now they're scared versus they knew up front, they know what they're getting into, and their mind's already working to how we can help this person out. And that's gonna help with refinancing too. So, if you're refinancing your house that you bought, you might have bought it all cash, and you might want to refinance out to get some of the risk out. And let's say you bought the house for 10, put 40 in, appraised for 100. You could take your 50 back out potentially, or you could even, if they're, it depends on what they approve you for. Let's say they approve you for 70% loan to value. They'll give you a loan for 70 grand on a $100,000 house. So you might be able to take out that 70 grand and use that to put towards another investment. So you just have extra 20 grand to use. So that's something you also need to think about, and why you want to be real professional and actually maybe try and be friends with your lenders. And once you get starting to deal with them, because certain things like that they might be able to help you with, and they can push things through for you. And that's something I'm going to take with me, because this business is all about relationships. And if I can keep my relationships as A1, top notch as possible, whatever you want to say, that's what I'm going to do. That's what she does. And success leaves clues. I want to make $1 million. I don't want to be the most innovative way to make $1 million. It doesn't have to be that. I could do the slow, methodical way. I don't have to have the most innovative way to make $1 million, as long as I make $1 million. That's my mindset. So successful people, when they tell me things that they do and they have success with, I take that, put that in my pocket, and try to implement everything I can. So that's what I learned from the rental class. If you guys have any questions, or you want to learn about anything else that I learned, just, I guess, leave a comment below and I'll get to you guys. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.